to know, so maybe next time.
Yes. Hello, hello.
Hi, already. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Can you all hear and see all of us?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So we have an amazing session for today, and I think it's going to be a really rich conversation between both of these groups. We actually have an amazing, I'm just a temporary stand-in. We have an amazing moderator who's unfortunately stuck in a bit of Nairobi traffic. But and she's gonna, you'll sort of see like, I'll disappear and she'll reappear. But before we kind of dive into today's topic, which is combating anti-rights practices from criminalization to forced sterilization, maybe we could start with just a little bit quick introductions, because I'm sure this is the first time for all of us interacting together. So we're going to start over in Nairobi and then throw it over to you in New York City. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we'll do name, one thing you're passionate about. So my name is Michelle. I'm passionate about, apart from feminism, I'm really passionate about football. Your turn, Phyllis.
You're a Liverpool fan.
I am a Liverpool fan. we just had an amazing victory for the non-football folks out there.
So my name is Mary Liz Buba. I use pronouns they, them, and I am passionate apart from human rights and feminism work. I am passionate about my anger. I'm passionate about football, Arsenal to be precise. And then I am very passionate about human beings in general and just understanding what people are all about.
Yes. Yeah, I am Dottie Ogutu. Like, I have so many things that I'm passionate about and I can't pinpoint one, but currently I'm very passionate about mentoring my 18-year-old son into a very powerful social justice activist. And so I'm dedicating so much of my time nowadays to mothering an 18-year-old child, because I don't know how to be a mother of an adult. Yeah.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Ava, pronouns she, her. What I'm passionate about, it's changing, but of late it's been sleep. So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
We should be more passionate about sleep. And Lorna, we're just doing introductions, your name and something you're passionate about. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you all.
Right.
Lorna Diaz, no idea if you can see or hear me, but Lorna
can.
Diaz, GALC Plus, formerly the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya. What do you want me to tell you?
Something you're passionate about. Anything. From feminism to football to sleep.
Welding.
Welding.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey.
Very well.
I'm going to throw it to our, can you hear? I'm seeing connection unstable. Okay, so I'm going to throw it to you all in New York. Do one of you want to start and then pass it around?
Sure. Let me start. Hello, everyone. My name is Ana. I'm Brazilian, and we are here with a lot of Brazilians. I'm passionate about, justice. I think it's one of the things that since I was born, I think is very like close to my heart. And I'm passionate about pets, dogs, plants. I'm trying to get a garden into my house now. I'm getting there. I'm happy.
Hi everyone, I am Ana Maria from Dominican Republic. I'm very passionate about build, create together, raise things with another people. And well, I'm so happy to share with you today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariah. I use she, her pronouns. I am very passionate about sex worker rights, and I am also very passionate about the outdoors and spending time outside, camping, and hiking.
My name is Maria Silvia. mas a Ana vai me ajudar agora, porque eu não falo inglês, só falo espanhol muito mal. Eu sou representante de Guelé 10, Instituto da Mulher Negra.
I am a representative of LGBTIQ, the Institute of the Black Woman in Brazil.
Sim, tenho interesse nas questões de direitos reprodutivos.
I'm passionate about reproductive rights.
Atualmente, aprovaram uma legislação no Brasil que autoriza mulheres a partir de 21 anos fazer laqueadura, mas é uma lei que me preocupa particularmente porque a gente não tem informação suficiente para que as pessoas possam tomar a decisão adequadamente.
So just for a little context, in Brazil now they passed a law where there is a right of the woman to have any procedure related to pregnancy, but there is no education around it. So I'm a little concerned that
Autoriza.
that the authorized women starting with 21 years old to get sterilized if they decide to do so. And that's something that I'm a little worried about.
Hi, I'm Edilza. I'm also from Brazil. I'm really passionate about feminism and also to learn about Black women's and women of color activism and struggle to get to be able to get access to human rights around the world. So it's a pleasure to be here and sharing and learning with you.
Thanks. I'm Karen. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm passionate about sexual and reproductive health and abortion rights, gender justice. And on a more personal note, I own a horse, which is my life. And I love rock climbing. So that's us on this side.
Lovely to hear from all of you. I think the connection's okay. We just dropped every now and then, but we'll figure it out along the way. So we're really, I feel like it's a really critical time to have this conversation, particularly in Kenya, and maybe to kind of set the tone of this conversation. Mary-Liz, do you want to share a little bit about the current situation, the current context, and why this conversation at this moment is important to you?
I feel like us being here today is, I don't like using the word divine intervention because that means a lot of things that I don't associate with. But basically us being here today is quite a real-time opportunity to be able to speak about a lot of things that are happening in the Kenyan human rights scene. And the reason I say a lot is because as a queer human rights activist in Kenya, we are just like, a week old since we had a judgment over a case that has been pursued for over 10 years. And there was a ruling that was given in 2019. And this ruling was then, people didn't agree with it. The NGO board refused to agree with that ruling. And they went to court. And in court is when now they started saying that, they don't approve of that because Kenya is a Christian country and all that bullshit that comes with Christianity and everything. And it was so frustrating then, but I think I'm more frustrated now because Kenya comes across, and I can use that word safely, Kenya comes across as a country that has a lot of learned and educated people. And that is true, but when it comes to things like abuse of human rights, Kenyans intentionally use their being learned to abuse people even further, because I think the thing that has made me struggle the most throughout this week has been the fact that being on social media, you interact with people who intentionally decide to butcher a whole judgment that doesn't mean all the things that they're saying. So everyone keeps on parading the fact that, including our president, which is so frustrating to know we have a president who is happy to do something like that, yet we pay him a lot of salary to hire enough people to be able to interpret all these things so that he doesn't come out to say things that will mislead people. But then he would come out and then begin saying things like, in this country, we don't allow, gay people to get married. In this country, we are a Christian country, we don't allow these things are unnatural, uncultural, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what can be so uncultural about people who have existed amongst you all their lives? Like people who have grown in the same country, people who have learned through the same values and all that kind of stuff. And social media has sat at the center of everything, because what started off as a judgment that was given against a petition that was put across after a ruling has become something that is being used, one, to taint the systems that we have in place that are supposed to work for people, but also to take a whole group of people and to threaten their lives, even when we are living in very trying times where we recently just had a human rights activist who is a very young gay man being killed in very, cruel circumstances, and we're still trying to wrap our heads around that. We are living in times where just barely a year ago, another person who is a queer person was killed, and people don't know how to sit with that information and process it from a human perspective and just understand that we are human beings and we do have rights to exist, and where you can feel your rights are being taken away by the existence of the other, you can go to the same court and follow due diligence rather, and follow the process and protocols to be able to change things, instead of attacking people, instead of making it unsafe, instead of making it difficult, because it has been really difficult for queer people to just like exist. Even me leaving my house today, it's how you want to leave your house, but then you begin asking yourself, do I use a matatu? What does that look like for me? I'm a person who, if you want to speak about Kenya and LGBTIQ rights, and you Google Kenya and LGBTIQ rights, you might see my face there. Who's to say the people I'll be seated in the matatu with, and matatu is the name we use for local transport in Kenya. Who's to say if I sit in that matatu and that person recognizes me, they won't recognize me from a page they Googled on Google, and they start attacking me. And it's so scary to think about it that way, because then most of us are also people who use then those public means of transport to go to different places, because private means of transport are really expensive and the economy is really struggling at the moment. So just like merging all these things and just looking at the reality of everything and feeling so alone, so excluded by the very system and the very government that we work for, we pay taxes to, and we hope to get equal services as everyone else who is allegedly, and I say that knowing that the system doesn't necessarily protect everyone, but we live in a fallacy that it does. And allegedly they feel protected, and we can't feel that same protection as them. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary-Liz, for kind of setting that tone of what's happening in Kenya. And just to say, we'd like to keep this very conversational. So if there's, if anyone in New York wants to jump in with a question or query, just feel free to do so. I'm going to go to Ava. If you could tell us a little bit, Mary-Liz has started talking a little bit about the challenges and the threats that, your constituencies and groups face when you're organizing in Kenya. And then from the work that you do, what does some of that look like? Some of the threats and challenges?
So in the recent past couple of years, I think the space has kind of quite been a bit moderately safe, so to speak, in terms of programming, in terms of willing partners who want to actually engage with communities. And by partners, I'm talking about different stakeholders such as state actors, and also the private sector in trying to engage with community organizing, so to speak. In light of what Mary-Liz said, by the ruling that just happened recently, you kind of start to see the deep-rooted issues that have existed for a really long time. And that looks like different views on what coexistence looks like, what organizing in a sense is. And you also start to see like some biases that are really damaging to people. So, for example, it's not every day that you'd actually expect to see someone you've worked with for years all of a sudden adopt all these values and all this rhetoric that is really damaging to someone that they actually know from a personal level. In terms of how communities are actually working at the moment, I think it's very contextual. For example, I represent a community for trans, intersex, and non-binary folk. But then again, you see that the hate is all around folks that appear a certain way. So what we've kind of seen at the moment is the hate that's actually being spread by politicians, the hate that's being spread by religious leaders, sort of like becomes targeted towards folks that actually bear the brand of not conforming to societal standards of what it means to have or be perceived as different sexual orientation, look as if you're of a different gender identity other than what's socially acceptable. And so to speak, people are feeling very afraid, which really sucks, to be honest. But you also find that it's one of the first times that we actually get to interrogate these things as a country in depth. I attended a media sit down. It was organized by Girl Plus. So we had folks from the media come to have a sit down with the community and sort of like get to understand where does all this conversations about sexual orientation, where do they stem down to in terms of the context in Kenya? And what you see is that the media folks are very afraid to show up, and most of them either came to sort of like see what's trending, what can we capture from this entire interaction with folks. The community showed up heavily, and I mean very boldly as well, but that kind of didn't sit well with a lot of folks, I guess, in terms of participation from the media. So in terms of how we're operating, in terms of the community and how people are working, again, as I said, it's very contextual. So people either choose to either enhance work that's already been doing with different partners. And at the end of the day, it's, to be honest, I honestly not want to talk much about it, because I feel from an individual perspective and also the human rights advocates, there's certain conversations that I guess due to my mental health or whatever, I personally choose to separate myself from. So to speak that whatever context Mary Liz was giving doesn't quote unquote affect my operations as a person that I feel other people also depend on in a certain sense. But I really think like probably Lona has something very interesting to share about that. Maybe like the context, as Michelle was asking, of what's been happening. Because in terms of organizing, it's very contextual. I think different groups try and adopt this very differently. For example, I know for trans organizing, folks either just choose to look at things from how can we not also like stand out and also be a target of hate, seeing as the conversation is mostly centered around sexual orientation, but we are yet to also have a discussion around gender identity issues, such as what gender markers are appropriate to go on documents. Can people change can people change their names, so to speak? And I feel before we even have that conversations around dismantling the hate around sexual orientation, around queer identity, queer existence, is kind of like what's pending before even conversation like that can happen. And that's what I'm saying, I can't really give a very contextual. Yeah.
Well, the things that we have seen so far. All right, just some historic like placement of this movement. We've had queer organizing, particularly men who have sex with men and gay men, have been organizing since 2004, if not earlier. And so moved along. At that time, everyone said, oh, they don't exist in this country, oh, blah, blah, blah. So in 2008, it started shifting where the Ministry of Health opened the doors towards key population program. And at that time, the vast different names, there was vulnerable groups, there was most vulnerable groups, more than the vulnerable of the vulnerable. It was crazy. Anywho, so 2008, it opened. 2010, we got a constitution. And what happened with that constitution was the people who were crafting that constitution actually had sexual orientation in it. But the religious people threatened to scuttle the constitution and the entire process if they didn't take out those names, which is why our constitution does not have those names. But what they did was they said, you know what, let's open it up in such a way and provide a backdoor by saying all, you know, all Kenyans, all people in Kenya. So we are in there with the all, but it doesn't seem to matter to anyone that we are actually part of this all, because, and if we look at the penal code, it's carnal knowledge against the order of nature, not carnal knowledge by LGBTQ plus people against the order of nature. No, it's all. Yet we are the ones that go and sit very firmly. We don't sit in the constitution, but we sit in that bill, that law is where now we are given high focus. But when it comes to the constitution, there's no focus. So most recently, for me, I knew the moment the elections happened, the moment we went in and the announcements were made, I knew for a fact this is going to be so difficult. Yep. I didn't realize just how insane people were. I didn't know how much for sale humanity is. If you have money, you will purchase humanity in this country. If you are political, you can purchase humanity. Our humanity of not just, okay, fine, you know what, we are really getting the hard parts right now. But it applies to everyone because we've got women and girls. We have children. My God, children are treated like carpets. You know, it's like things you step on. And so my thought was, how do you get anyone to understand humanity that they have never known for themselves, starting from childhood? Is our question about LGBTQ plus anything, or is it about how we raise ourselves as humans? Because people have spoken about being beaten from the very beginning. The business of having conviction is beaten out of you. The business of having an opinion is beaten out of you. From when you're a child, the business of asking questions is beaten out of you. In university was the only period people aged 18 to 24, that's the age of anarchy. We had Mr. George Magoha who came and took away all their voice by just crushing their spirits and putting in laws and regulations that they could not even speak. All they want to do now is get in, do it, get out. They don't care about the country. They don't care about anything else. They certainly don't care about humanity. It's about what's in it for me. How am I moving forward? Can I just make it my way? You know, can I make my way in this world? And so here we are. all of us rainbow fabulous people doing incredible things, incredible things, moving and shaking. But the country, then look at the country. The country is facing horrible times thanks to horrible governments before it. And then even now, we don't even know what this horrible direction, because our taxes have just gone through the roof. Yep. Fuel costs a fortune, electricity. So people have this rage that they are looking for a way to express it, unleash this rage. And rather than unleash it on the government where it belongs, that's not how expressing rage works. Expressing rage, you look for the weaker one and you express your rage on that you have perceived as weaker. And because they think that we are alone, they have no idea. We are so not alone. But because they think that we're alone, they gang up. And so when I've been watching, today I had a meeting with our emergency security response team. We've had to set up our own things because we have no law. We have nothing to protect us. So we create our own. It's like a little government, a government within a government. So we have security teams that go out and respond to crises. 24 people across the country that were describing what was happening on the ground. And I swear to you, when I was listening to very quiet, I was listening to the hunting people down and going to lynch them and lighting crosses. That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of Germany in Hitler's times, when and systematically everywhere they went. Those are the things I was seeing because I have watched movies, I have seen documentaries, and it's like history doesn't teach us anything. Our humanity being for sale, our allies, we wonder whether our allies are actually cowards in disguise, because the slightest pressure, and they run and hide. They run and hide.
Self-preservation, yeah.
Self-preservation. Everyone is afraid of political, religious, economic suicide. To associate with us now is to be suicidal in this country. So if you want to know what our situation is, and I had this conversation, it was a very hard conversation with my security people because they were looking for help. They're like, what do we, and I was like, you know what, I'm not a politician and I will not lie to you. This is the hardest time that we will likely ever face in our lives. We are fighting for our lives. I don't have solutions. I cannot give you guarantees. All we are doing is we are trying. That is the best I can offer. We're going to reach out to our funding partners. We're going to reach out to whomever. This is now a Hail Mary. This is a prayer to the universe and to God, if such a thing exists, is these are terribly dark times. And it comes to mind the people from Rohingya. It comes to mind the people from Serbia, Croatia. It comes to mind the people from Rwanda, Burundi. All these things, it's like we are about to be hunted down. And they are growing with their pack-like mentality. I can't even give them an animal name because animals are too good. You feel what I'm saying? Animals are too good. So that is the situation in this country right now. That's where we are. It's hopeless, but do we look hopeless? Hell no. Hell no. We will not give up. As long as I have air in my lungs and I'm breathing and my heart is beating, There is no way, not on my watch.
You know, Lorna, you say you like all three of you painted this picture, and this is what it is. And for me, I sit and I worry because our spirits are also being crushed. Because, you know, with the Ministry of Health, key population, whatever it is we were called, and we got some good gains at some point. But then now, you're just wondering, hold up, is it all just going down the drain? And so from where I sit and where it is I work, and we are a response organization, Frontline Defenders, and we don't even know how to respond because there's a whole lot of spirits have been crushed. Even the activists, the boldest of the boldest that I know personally, myself included, I am scared. I am scared. And so the only other space that I have is my little cocoon on my mobile phone that I can just tell you people, you know what? You and your morals, shove it. But that's the farthest that I can go, because the other thing I don't want to do is to expose my family, expose my colleagues, expose my friends. So therefore, guess what? You have painted a target on your back. So we know who are they? Lorna, Dottie, Eva, and we are being hunted. That is very dangerous because one of the things this generation of us has done is to try and build a second, like a younger generation of activists. But the message they are getting now is that don't even dare. Don't even dare come out. Don't speak out. Don't say nothing. What are you standing for? And if the recent murders are anything to go by, is that, you know what? We will kill you. We will send goons after you. We will send your own people after you. Because some of the things that we've seen happening recently, they appear as assassinations, right? That's what it appears as. And you ask yourself, okay, is it worth it? As much as our lives depend on it, but we've now retreated to survival mode. I just want to survive. I want to be alive. And that is scary. When I talked about my current, what I'm passionate about now, is because I am raising a young queer man. And I am scared for him. Because I want to leave this world a better place where he can exist as himself. But now asking myself, is it worth it? Is it worth it, me losing my life, for him to then continue in a society where he's never going to be accepted? And that, for me, is scary.
It's interesting. I hear when you say, like, you also want, you think about safety of your child, how you want to also create that atmosphere where, like, family isn't harmed. And it just got me thinking that when society pushes you towards, like, the margins, at some point you have nowhere else to go. So you have to stand and fight. And it kind of like relates to what I've been feeling recently. And my mental health has been shit, to be honest, for the past couple of months. I am finding myself in for the first time, never had to question my existence in spaces, but now I'm constantly, okay, am I getting clocked by certain people? What kind of risk am I putting myself into, all the people around me to see? But then again, I go home and I kind of tend to think about it, and I'm like, it's really difficult to not want to stand up and fight back, especially when I see that the only reason I'm alive, the only thing that makes me alive is how I exist as myself. And that kind of gives me the energy to be, you know what, fuck it. At the end of the day, I'm going to walk around, be myself. I want to also give that example of that I'm here, I exist this way, and taking me anywhere, so to speak. But again, it comes with privilege. And I think that's something I don't think I have gotten to sort of like really understand, because I also kind of tend to think of conformity, and what people actually really fighting against is what they actually see as being diverse and different. And how I choose to exist every day, it's something that's always going to be not conforming to systems. And I don't know. I guess it's also a perspective to look at. I like the way Mary Liz is always very bold on social media fighting, and
it's interesting you say it like that, because when you're speaking and when she was speaking, I was thinking about that same thing, perspective and privilege and all that kind of stuff. And I think for me, the last 3-4 weeks, more or less, give or take, have been difficult in the sense of, so there's this weird loneliness, with everything that has been happening. We've not even had room for us to settle and for us to transition. We are still dealing with, one of us being murdered, and then just before that, a judgment is passed and everyone, is out for us. And so it seems like there's literally no room for us to take a breather. And that's how 2023 has literally been for queer people. And then just like me thinking about it and knowing me as I am as an individual, I've always said to myself, I'd rather, die on my knees than live on my feet in a country that will not, acknowledge that I exist. I'd rather be fighting so that you catch me fighting. But recently I've caught myself asking, even for the fight, it has felt lonely in interesting ways. I feel like I've gone back and forth with so many things, but I think the biggest thing that I've gone back and forth with, and as she was speaking about Hassan, the thing I've gone back and forth with is feeling that loneliness of the whole world, or in this case, the whole country seems to be against us. And then I have a whole family that has been against me for the last 4 years. And so I keep on wondering, yes, I'm fighting and I want to fight. And I've always known that my motivation is that the life I've had shouldn't be a life any other queer person goes through. And I know I do not have superpowers, but I do have, at least, in the very least, some power to fight now and here, even if it's just for one person. But it becomes really difficult when that person to fight for is sometimes yourself, and you don't even have that strength, and you don't have places to go to and feel safe to do that. You don't have places to everything happening and taking away our right to be able to meet and just like have community and talk to people and be held by people and all that kind of stuff, but also lack of people to do that and lack of people in the sense of, just like having a mother to call, for example. And my mother is somewhere minding her business as it should be, because every human being is literally doing that. But I never thought in my 32 years of living, I'd be here today and wondering, what would me sitting in this moment in my vulnerabilities as a queer person and in the fight that I constantly wake up to fight, I never imagined that I would wake up one day and the thing that would make me break down is the thing of, I really wish I could just just call my mother and just go sit with her and just tell her things. But just knowing also the reality of, under everything that is happening, my mother is among the people who's probably somewhere saying, this country is not a country for gay people. It's not a country for queer people. And the pains of it all, and the fight, there's the external fight. We fight for human rights and all that, but then there's the internal fight. Sometimes you find yourself fighting yourself and you're like, all this for what? And normally I'm clear, I know what all this is for. But in some moments you find yourself wondering, like, what for, really? Because essentially I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, I may not have a child that I'm fighting for. I may not have, all the people that I'm fighting for, I fight because of all the things that I've gone through as a queer person, and I wouldn't want to see any of that. But can I fight if I'm non-existent? And the whole fear of my existence is, my life is so fickle at the moment that anything goes wrong and I can no longer continue fighting for those people, and then it's all over and done, and like that responsibility that I put upon myself to fight is kind of taken away from me without any liberties whatsoever from myself, and it's scary. It's just I'm not a scared person. People who know me know I'm not scared. I'd speak to anyone. I would say anything I need to say to whoever I need to say it to, but I've been feeling so scared of talking. I'm a person who uses social media a lot to say a lot of things. And I found myself being so scared because there's a lot to explain, but also it comes across as though the people to explain these things to are people who are supposed to know better, and they know better. But they just would rather put the lives of people in danger because they can and they want to, and they feel like they should do it. And it's so frustrating to be in that place. Like Lorna was saying, I was among the most pessimistic people during elections. And people came at me in my DMs because I kept on telling them, I'm not saying I am for any candidate, but I do know the candidate I'm not for. And I kept on saying clearly, William Ruto becomes the president of this country and the country is going to go to shits. I may not know much, but I know enough as a person who has lived in this country and my keen interest on different issues about this country. I know enough to know Ruto is not a person we should have dared to trust this country with. But we did that, and people came to me and people told me, Ruto is a good person, you're just rumor mongering and fear mongering and all that kind of stuff. And I've had this numbing fear even before the elections. And I guess I'm just the kind of person who hates being in a situation where we all knew better, and people are coming out now to say we knew better when our president has already spent what? Almost over 7 billion in like how many months of him being in power? And people
double 15 billion.
No, the doubling was to up it from the previous one, but so far the 7 billion has already gone with the wind, and we don't see any change. We don't see things. Kenyans are going hungry. We are all suffering, but now it magnifies. As Lorna was saying, we are targeted because we look like we are alone. We are not alone per se, but we look like, or we are an easy target, or it's the gays. We know everyone doesn't want the gays, so let's remove the gays first. And so, like, the thing that has been lingering are we gonna stay silent until all of us are taken, and then there'll be no one else left to defend the few who think they'll be left, because they will come for them too?
I just have one small thing to say. Honestly, I have one small thing to say. The thing is, this campaign that we have experienced now is not Ruto's work. It is Azimio. Azimio is the other party, the one that lost. It is their work. Because if Ruto had wanted to decimate us, babes, he would have brought Kaluma's bill. Kaluma is the one who's trying to bring a horrible anti-homosexuality bill. He would have signed that thing already. When he spoke, it was to bring Kenyans down, because what he said was, we will not allow marriage. We haven't asked for marriage. He knows we haven't asked for marriage. He is trying to bring people down. I have a feeling all our partners, our externals, you name it, have been asking him, dude, what are you doing? And he has been boxed by Azimio. He's been put in a box. He's been put in such a corner. He can't turn. He can't turn against his electorate because the religion is what got him there. He can't turn against the international, so he has to say and do something. He can't turn against his family, his wife. Wow. He can't. Wow. So you see, he is in such a bad, unenviable. I'm almost feeling sorry for that guy, much as I do not like him at all. But I am more harmed and betrayed and angry with those in that party that lost, that are using us, that they had claimed to be progressive, and even this Raila, he had apologized 15 years ago for saying some rubbish, and right now he is playing to the gallery. He's playing to the audience. My problem is those turncoats, so you never know who your allies are. You would rather know Ruto's out in the open. I don't want. These ones are nice to you, and then when the shit has hit the fan, they turn on you. I would love them all to burn.
Well,
Burn them all down.
Sorry. My name is Nyamura Mundia. I am the moderator of this session, but I ran late because Nairobi traffic is very unpredictable. We will be going for a 10 minutes break. Just so that we, stick down what we have said. We've spoken about the backrolling of legislation, the scattering of our allies, but also what we do in the space of rising matrices where we have religious fundamentalism, a breakdown of family or ally support, but also interference by colonial masters. And where does that put us, as a community, but also how does this intersect with other feminist struggles? And are there learnings we could have between the contexts? Because I think part of winning the fight, I think, is comparing notes. And sometimes it's one thing, because you know what, I think depending on what we've been subjected to, resilience is, we could pass down lessons around resilience. And I would want us to talk about what are the wins. I mean, the context sounds very grim, especially in Kenya, but maybe not, right? And we must not lose hope. But what are the tangible wins, and how could we, exchange learnings on the tactics? So I would ask, we needed to hear what from our New York friends, but for now, I would ask her to take a 10 minutes break, and then we resume. And again, I'm so sorry I ran late. I tried my best, I swear. But thank you.
Okay. All right. People, we haven't seen each other for donkey's years.
And I miss with the introductions. Can you imagine? I passed here 7 times. I was so sure that either was going to do something.
Like we've just uploaded.
What did we do? What's happening?
The thing needs air.
Oh, okay.
Like the
There's a feedback.
uploading, the uploading that we just did.
Hey,
Mbura, so nice to see you. Yeah.
So good to see you.
Yeah.
You come now. You came after me.
Oh, I did. So therefore you're gonna have it on me?
Before you also have.
Yeah,
I need some.
aí eu calculei que
Falou que não.
não ia aí eu fui. Aí eu resolvi vir aqui, porque vocês tinham falado. Só que eu não tinha ideia.
Look at this.
No, it's got put up with the chair, but
No, it was Ava.
Ava.
Ava's the one who came up with that smart idea of the chair. Me, I was holding it like her.
Good for you for not taking credit for things you don't do.
Have I ever taken
No, they
credit
just
for
put
things
the
I've not?
stool there.
Yeah, like sitting on.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
What do you? This young gentleman. Which young gentleman? This one. Which one? Where? Oh my God! What a young.
it would be nice to start from there so that we cross-pollinate in terms of learnings as we speak about what are the learnings and what and the wins. So if you guys would take lead on this part of the session, that would be nice.
So is there in here that are working on forced sterilization, that issue?
No? Okay. No? Okay. Okay. Alrighty. I think in that case, we just then continue the conversation around, what are the learnings and what are the winnings, so that we do not, just go home feeling terrible about the struggles and the places we're doing. And I would still want to start with you guys. Is the translation working okay?
Yes, it's working.
It's the same, it's not available.
Eu não consigo entender exatamente o que ela está falando, então acho que é melhor eu ir uma troca.
You can start, sorry. I was just telling them.
No. Yeah, we're just coordinating on translation among some of the groups here, but
thank you.
So, like reflection, are you able to hear me? No. A little bit. Is now okay?
It's the
Okay.
A bit of static, but I think
You see static?
go on.
Okay. Let me know, just give me a hand sign if I'm, yep, okay. So I will speak, just try to be loud and clear. So as you all were speaking, I was thinking about, I'm from the United States, I'm based here in the US. And a lot of what you're speaking to in terms of political unwill from your alleged allies and not being really there when things are more difficult is very similar to what I see in the United States. I work on sex worker rights in particular, but also on issues related to the LGBTQ community, and also very much right now, the targeting of the trans and non-binary community here in the United States. And I'm thinking about, during the break, we were talking about the money that comes from the United States, from the right wing in the US, and the role that the US plays in exporting this very allegedly Christian-based doctrine that is very anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans. I think that is a deep misinterpretation of the Christian religion. I'm not religious myself, but I think if you read the Bible for what it is, that there isn't actual language that is telling you to go and harm and target the LGBT community, but there is a version of Christianity that is exported and is very much a central part of US culture here. And it is used as a means to target and really harm and lead to the death of many people in this country and around the world who are LGBTQ. And so I just want to say that everything that you all were speaking to really resonated with me. I know one of you were speaking to how folks feel like they are being hunted. That's the same in the United States. We had a mass shooting. I mean, we have them constantly in this country. It's hard to even keep track. But there was one in Colorado not long ago on the day, the International Trans Remembrance Day, at an LGBTQ club where several members of the trans community were murdered and other LGBTQ members of the community were murdered. And so it really is, it's not hyperbole, it is literal that people are being hunted. And we also see that in the US and in other countries, in Kenya as well, that laws are being changed in ways that are deeply harmful. So in the US, on a state level, we are seeing an onslaught of bills being introduced. Like you said, it's only a couple of months into 2023, and already it feels like it is just constant. There's just this onslaught of attacks against the LGBTQ community. And there are just bills almost daily that are being introduced, some being passed in this country, that are explicit about wanting to rid the world of trans people, of LGBTQ people, and it is psychologically and emotionally very difficult. So I also just want to give some grace and space to all of us doing this work, that it is hard. And I've heard that coming through in the work that you all do, that it just feels like it's a safe place, and that's because right now there really isn't. So thank you for everything that you've shared and for all the work that you do. I don't have a particular question at this moment. I just really am so grateful for everything. Well, I guess if there was a question, it's just, how do we work together more? And as somebody coming from the US, I think about how do I stand up to the power that is in this country that is exporting this hate around the world.
So I have a quick comment also in this line, because I'm in my work with youth, people in Brazil, trans, queer, and also women and men with I can understand how they are at the same time in fear of their lives, and also full of the idea that the future can be better. So it's in the balance all the time. And I understand all you said about the government, and also the idea that's not a protection. It's also very present with the people I work, and also how I see our lives in Brazil. So I want to know how we can build this a strong transnational solidarity. I think it's a way out. It's some way out to know what's happening, to learn with you, but also how we can build these transnational solidarity ways to help and to give this and have this conversation, this kind of conversations more and more, and learn and how, and also learn about strategies, learn about what's happening, but not only about that, and how we can go out and do things and stay together more and more. So thank you so much for all the share you did, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please go.
Yeah, for sure. Can you remember all of this? Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. I really appreciate it. I think for me, what I've been thinking about is the ways in which we try to move what we call the movable middle, because there's often a lot of people sitting on the fence who are not necessarily in our the safe spaces that we try to create, or are queer but could be allies but are not speaking out because they are often also afraid. I think one of the campaigns for me that was most inspiring as someone who works on sexual and reproductive health was the Irish abortion campaign to repeal the referendum there, because Ireland is a very Catholic country. So many people are very religious, and they had very strong feelings about abortion access, and that it made them feel uneasy. And one of the ways in which that was repealed was by really doing a big research on the values in the community. And solidarity was really important for the Christian community. So they ended up having a slogan that said, "A woman you love might need your yes," which really resonated with many people, because it was not about them, like they weren't comfortable necessarily with abortion access, but they did want, if their daughter, neighbor would need an abortion, that they would want them to have access. And I know that it can be harmful to have acts to have women's rights framed only in relation to other people. So I realize that that's also a tricky part of this example. But I think one of the things I really learned from that campaign and referendum is to look at the values in your community and to see how you can frame your message in a way that resonates with them, rather than saying, you know, my body, my choice, because that would not have worked in Ireland. They really needed something that would resonate with their Catholic values. So that's something I wanted to share, even though that's not my campaign. So all credits to people working on that. Thank you. Thank you.
No more questions. From there, yes, go ahead.
So I don't know whether I mentioned this when I was introducing myself, but I identify as a sex worker, and I'm a sex worker rights activist here in Africa. And one of the other campaigns that we have sort of a strategy that we've employed over the last couple of years is really to reach the movable middle, because it's absolutely pointless to try and move the right wingers.
Yes.
They're completely unmoved, unshaken by whatever message you want to put across. And I remember this particular, so when Amnesty International was formulating their policy on decriminalization of sex work, it was such a horrible experience having to put me, like I was put against another woman who's a survivor of sex trafficking and slavery. And whilst I empathize with their own experience and their tragedy, it's just to say that, you know, it's not a homogeneous experience that sex workers would have the same experience of being exploited or being trafficked. And that really was the thing that moved an institution as powerful as Amnesty International to adopt a policy on decriminalization of sex work. And so going the step further to want to work with feminist organizations and feminists who are the movable middle. So developing fact sheets that speak towards experiences of sex work, speak around the challenges that come with criminalization, the challenges that come with empowerment of women, and what it means, particularly for one particular model that is being promoted all over, and it's kind of being exported now to Africa, which is criminalization of third parties who are the clients of sex workers. And that essentially means you're taking away their livelihoods. And it's through having conversation with the movable middle of feminists to say that when you're talking about empowerment of vulnerable women and with women or trans women or you know, like just generally people who are engaged in sex work or in the sex industry, is that a lot of it really bottoms down to economic empowerment. And by criminalizing third parties, you're taking away their livelihoods. It's a strategy that currently is also being very strongly challenged. And it's so like currently in South Africa, there's a bill in Parliament for decriminalization of sex work, and they like open it up for partners, organizations, civil society, and other stakeholders to really contribute and give their opinions about that. And I mean, it's institutions such as CREA, AWID, and other feminist organizations that really did not have a policy on sex work or didn't have a stand or didn't make a decision, but their contributions to such conversations and giving out those experiences and experiences even of women and trans women, and it was limited to, unfortunately, just that, because again, going overboard to have a conversation about male sex workers was also an overreach. So just limiting to women and trans women, and sharing those experiences of women who don't particularly identify as sex workers, but have at one point or another engaged in the exchange of sex or sexual favors for whatever. And that really helps in shifting the conversations. It helps in shifting the dynamic. It helps even in just having conversations within communities and with people like on a day-to-day who would point fingers to someone who is a sex worker. And we had a lot of that happening during COVID, where sex workers were not allowed to get the relief, and you would get all this religious women and women in local community or authority saying that they shouldn't access social protection because they were sex workers, but then still seeing the women who are the movable middle coming back to say, but you know what, they're supporting their family. And because they haven't been able to go back and engage in sex work, that they actually need this sort of social protection that was being provided for vulnerable women, young women, girls, like during COVID. Yeah, so it's interesting those are some of the strategies that I think from within the sex workers movement, we've been able to identify and adopt from seeing struggles from within, SRHR, with abortion, even just with the emancipation of women, because we still have countries where women are not emancipated, and this is just women in how the description of being identified as a woman and not trans women not being included. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So just listening to everything that the people were saying and looking at the intersection of all this, and where the point of us meeting comes from the fact that those who are not fighting, for example, what Kenya is fighting at the moment, have fought this fight at some point, and there's a lot to learn. But as we speak about that, I think one thing that has been apparent to me currently is the urgent need to go back to the drawing board and sort of kind of revisit what allyship is all about. And I say this while putting to heart all conversations that have been happening. Like I said, I think since we started this year, things have just been going haywire for the LGBTIQ community. And that has prompted a lot of thoughts within me, but also just like, for example, to back that up with the fact that I for example, believe the word sanctions as is in the dictionary is essentially saying, if I'm not getting something from a place that I'm giving everything to, then I'm gonna take the things that I'm giving away from this place until such a time that I can get whatever it is I'm looking for from this place. And I say that putting in mind that after the judgment that was done recently, then the US ambassador to Kenya came out and said, we are going to distance ourselves from everything that is happening to do with LGBTIQ rights and all that. We understand that Kenya as a country has its own, government and its own mandate, and it knows what it's doing, and we are not going to contribute to that. We are just gonna continue working, and we have a strong working relationship with the government and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, of course you have a strong relationship with the government. That's why you've come to pitch tent here. But shouldn't that come with the whole aspect? Because if today, and there has been many incidences where something goes wrong or happens to, for example, a citizen of the US while they're in Kenya, and this embassy then blows out and says, we will not keep quiet, we will do everything. But when the roles are reversed, you're an ambassador of your country to our country, and you are essentially just coming out and saying, I know we are pitching our tent in this country and things are unsafe, but we are privileged enough, we can afford security, we can afford safety, we can run whenever it feels like it's safe for us to run. And so we are not gonna care so much about the people who are taxpayers, who are underprivileged, who are being centered by all the attacks that are coming their way, and nothing is being done about it. And you're using your power as a potential ally, but also as someone who funds probably all this homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, queerphobia that is being experienced in the country, and you're going to stand and wear that badge with pride at the expense of people who are being killed and being murdered and all that. And so looking at it like that, and then just like asking ourselves, and this is a question I've been asking myself together with my co-founder. We ran an organization that is called the Queer Republic. And essentially the reason we arrived at the Queer Republic, even as a name, was because whatever it is we are fighting for, we are asking it from people who are happy not to give it to us, but are also not getting the entirety of whatever it is we are asking for. And so what does an alternative world look like? What does an alternative country, nation, republic, state, utopia, if you may, look like for queer people? Because the cry of queer people in Kenya is pretty much the cry of queer people in South Africa, where laws are totally different, but still homophobic attacks happen all the time. When xenophobic attacks are happening, they also target queer people in equal measure and all that kind of stuff. So then how do we build a society, a community of queer people that we can find ways, again, as Lorna was saying earlier, create some sort of a government within a government where we can find ways to protect ourselves and kind of create our own imagination of what privilege looks like for us, and then protecting that and ensuring that no one can harm that, because then it seems as though whoever we are asking these things from, it could be our government and all they collaborate with to ensure they are able to serve us as the, right holders and them as the duty bearers, but it seems as though it's difficult for them to do that. And so then what does that look like? So asking the question of, if you're an ally, to what extent? Or are you just gonna say you're an ally to get into rooms that you feel you wanna get into, and then after you're done with that, you forget about the people you completely used to get into those rooms? So that, and I was listening to you speaking about Ireland and just looking at how I believe in humanizing process. And I love the whole concept of, a woman in your life might need a yes at some point. And I love that concept because, and I hate that as human beings, we claim to be the most intelligent pack of animals, but sometimes I doubt that, because then why should any kind of harm be more apparent to you only when proximity is provided? Why shouldn't harm be harm? Why shouldn't I be uncomfortable if a human being is being harmed, regardless of whether I know them, regardless of whether I see them, regardless of whether we speak the same language, regardless of whether we have the same skin color? Why should only abuse be apparent if, for example, my mother is mentioned, or my partner is mentioned, or my child is mentioned? Why is it the only time that you can have a relationship with abuse that doesn't support abuse, but any other time you're okay with abuse happening to people? And that is problematic and questionable. Thank you.
Yeah, just sitting here thinking, what the fuck is going on? 2023, I mean, some conversations about things. I would have thought a progressive law would be art, and like in terms of how we're thinking about things, that approach that we use. Now that's really interesting here, thinking with all the shit that's actually happening out there. I think as a community nation, we've already done our bits. I think it's a pot for other folks to like stew in, such as their own biases. For example, like what's been happening recently in the media is you find that it's other non-queer Kenyans calling out other non-queer Kenyans who also like spreading hate, being very so I don't know.
Yeah, the several suggestions, the movable middle. We've been doing movable middle since, I joined this coalition in 2013. The coalition had gone through difficulties in 2010, and then I joined in 2013, and we tried to rebuild it and restructure it, which we've succeeded. And we've been working on network building, partnerships, movable middle, you name it. We've looked for all the possible ways to expand our base of support. And what we have found now, the reality is we're talking about immovable unconscious bias. That's where the thing is sitting. Unconscious bias. You come in, you engage with us, you smile and laugh, and we drink tea together, and we have lunch, and we plot and plan and strategize, and it all looks good. But you're sitting with this unconscious bias that when somebody comes along and presses your buttons, you turn and it rolls back. So in looking for, I love the thing about revisiting allyship and the fact that we've got non-queer Kenyans questioning non-queer Kenyans about the madness. And you have voiced exactly the things that I've been saying in other meetings, is we have done an incredible amount of work. We're constantly telling people, like even in feminist spaces, we're like, please read a book. Please do some work.
Just one.
Just do some work, And here we are. Not only do we have to save our lives, not only do we save the lives of others, because we're constantly in the streets doing solidarity for all the things. Other people, when our government was assassinating, who were these extrajudicial killings, there we were with all our flags and fabulosity, doing all the things about stop extrajudicial killings. We are almost like the
hump of a camel.
I have no idea what that means
in this context.
But we actually carry, we carry the message of humanity in all the spheres of our lives because we are everywhere. We carry this. It is almost like the universe has dictated that it is our responsibility to bring love, to bring kindness, to bring care, to bring personhood to any space that we are thrown in, because we live such hard lives. We know what it's like. We're veterans. We're veterans of hardship. Okay? We are veterans of hardship. So if anyone wanted, perhaps the message should be, if you want to know how to succeed at anything, ask the queer people, because they have succeeded pretty much. If
we
they're
ran
still living,
all the movements.
If they're still living, then they have succeeded at a lot. So we have all the tricks and all the ways of moving around. It's what do we do when we are abandoned by the very people who we had once believed in? So I am revisiting how much I trust. I am revisiting who I trust. I am revisiting where I trust. Why I would trust. I'm revisiting all these things. So to be honest with you, as much as I would love to share lessons learned, because if you had spoken to me before August, I would have given you a whole list, a whole book of things to go away and try. And in 1 minute like this, everything has changed. Everything. So when we're talking about allies and we're talking about creating networks and partnerships, the thing is, just how strong are the convictions of the person I'm trusting? Am I compelled to ask the people who I engage with, you know how they say, oh, out yourself, come out of your closet, because I need to know where your convictions are.
Right.
Are your convictions the same? Are your values the same? So when you stand up to introduce yourself, okay, now introduce yourself, your name, your interests, your things you like, the things you're passionate, and what your convictions are.
Yeah.
That should be the new way of introducing. What are your convictions? Because
Yeah.
if I'm to engage with you, I need to know that we're on the same page, that we have the same values, that we have the same principles, that you feel the same way I feel about anybody, not just queer people. Anyone who is being harmed for whatever reason, just because they're different, our values need to be the same. So we are actually going back to this drawing board. As Mary-Lise has suggested, we are revisiting everything. I'm a bit too old and too ugly to be wanting to do this, but I would have wanted a slightly easier way of stepping out and saying, okay, people, it's all yours, run away with it. But no, we're here, and we're probably going to be here for life.
Wow. We only have 10 minutes, and we had 2 more questions to do, but I think what is fair now is end it on the note that Mary-Lise and Lorna have alluded to, in terms of if you were to have a round of last words, in terms of revisiting, what allyship means, but also holding people who are allies accountable. Because if you're an ally, you either see it through, or because we can't count on you when shit hits the roof. So then I think for me, but before we do a round of closing remarks, I want to apologize for using the word guys before. It's a fox, and that's where she's the small things that you catch yourself in terms of what you call natural reflex, and you have to sit with it and ask, what is that about, right? Because sometimes it means that you might not want to go as far as you think you can. And so thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for bearing with us. But I would want us to just go on. Yes, we start with you folks on this side. Last remarks as we close in.
I guess I can go real quick. When you said the immovable unconscious bias that some people hold within them, and that you need to really know where people stand, especially if they claim to be your allies, I think of that in terms of the end demand, the groups that are saying, with sex works, that they think the solution is to decriminalize it allegedly, but only for the worker and not for the client. And that to me is deeply disingenuous. And that I see that the folks who are promoting end demand models also fly the flag of feminism. And they use that as a rationale for this approach to the sex trades in particular. And I think within so many contexts, but within the US as well, that with end demand, you're still placing so much power into the hands of police. And that us and so many other countries, the police have proven themselves to be untrustworthy partners in the liberation of anybody's human rights. And so I think that with that, at least if somebody is saying that is what they see as the liberation of people within the sex trades, that they are telling on themselves, that they are not allies, that they are not there for BIPOC communities, they're not there for trans communities, they're not there for LGBTQ communities, that they are putting power into the hands of the oppressor. And so I was just reflecting on that when you were talking about, the people who supposedly are on your side, but deeply, deeply are not.
Yes.
Frozen.
Oh yeah, it's Mark.
I don't really have anything to add. I just want to thank you all again for everything you've shared.
I want to thank you for this conversation. I have learned a lot. As a Brazilian that is a migrant living in the US, I see so much parallels between the US and Brazil. When we think about the extreme far right, and we think about the ultra-rights movements, how they are coordinated globally. And when you were mentioning what's going on in Kenya, I was thinking, who is this president? We need to Google him. We need to understand further, because maybe the strategies that he is using or they're using are the ones that it was using Brazil already. And we can share what we did in order to address and prevail against Bolsonaro. And that's one example. But thinking also about, as you mentioned it, how we can create more conversations that understand the extreme right as a US export commodity. That US evangelicals, US Christians put so much money into conservative and anti-rights legislations, not only here, but around the world, and how we can make them accountable for that. I think that's also part of when we're thinking about solidarity. And then my last point is how we can continue this conversation, especially when we're centering the global South, because I do think that we Black Brazilians and Kenyans and people in Burundi and people in South Africa, we should get together to understand the strategies that people are putting against us, but also the strategies that we are using, and that they are ancestral strategies that are also survivor strategies. And that's the reason why we are still here. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay.
No, I really don't have anything to add. I thank Anna for her words, and I agree with her. So I want to hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Closing remarks from this.
Closing remarks? I just have one thing that was shared with someone who shared it with me, and this is a TikTok by Gia Goodrich. And it is called, well, one second, my eyes need to. It is called The Bystander Effect. Just look for Gia, G-I-A, Goodrich, she, her on TikTok, The Bystander Effect. Because everything she has said about the experiment that she experienced is what we are experiencing in this world right now. Gia Goodrich, TikTok, The Bystander Effect. Number two, if you look at the way in which this thing is spreading, Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria. It's like all the men went into a room and had a conversation with the evangelicals and came up with this plan.
They probably did that when the Queen died in that bus.
All the men went into a room and had a conversation with the evangelicals, and the evangelicals used the thing of brotherhood. Oh, we're coming to, you're my brother. Come and pray with me and have breakfast with me, and I will poison your mind without you knowing. So we've actually seen it, and that documentary, The Family and C Street, whoa! Be sure that is playing out live as we are watching that. So those are my final words. But guess what? We are here. Okay? We are here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorna.
My last remarks is, so you asked where else can we have this conversation? So I am part of the planning committee for CFCS. This is Changing Faces, Changing Spaces. And I'm co-coordinating as part of the Sex Worker Donor Collaborative. So there's a donor pre-conference. There's several other pre-conferences. CFCS is a space that's organized for LGBTIQ sex worker activists in Africa. It's no longer East Africa thing, it's an Africa thing. And I know everything that's happening in the region is going to be discussed there. So I am going to share that information with the ABID team so that you can get that. Registration is open, so make sure you sign up and you attend for that. Security is going to be tighter than tight. And I think that's also another space where we are going to be reevaluating this allyship and just asking people who are with us to really stand with us. So for me, those are my parting words. CFCS, it's happening in May, 14th to 19th of May. Yeah.
Thank you so much. For me, it would be looking, I guess, at the power of voices, and I just put that just keeps ringing in my head is the future looks back at the past to reevaluate itself, and whatever was spoken, whatever was said in the past, obviously influences the current future. So, power to the voice.
Power to the voice. Marilise? I guess I just want to say fuck you. Fuck you to all the bullshit that is happening in the world at the moment, starting right from my little world as a human being to the larger perspective of it all. And maybe my closing remarks would be a pledge to just like constantly continue to raise a middle finger in the true fashion of me being very passionate about my anger. Raise the middle finger to every system that is out to get me. And by me here doesn't mean me as an individual, but by me here it means me as a human being and every other human being, that the very system that we work tirelessly to sustain is wanting intentionally to come for our lives. So yeah, my closing remarks is just fuck you. Thank you.
Well, that's I don't know, applause for all of us. And we get to end on time. Thank you very much. I am sure if you think about other resources, we can pass them on to the EWID team for them to share and circulate. So please think about if you think about something, do not hesitate to send it to the EWID team. Thank you very much. Asante sana. Go about in your day. And for my folks here, I guess it's good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Or we could hang out and drinks. No?
Yeah.
That's true. We actually ended on time.
Where are the drinks?
Oh. Ask Michelle.
Michelle?
If it's water, I'm gonna fight.
I like the way I'm making noise. Do you know I don't drink no more?
Oh, really?
It doesn't agree with me.
Oh.
Age is a miraculous thing.
So just drink when you can. You will stop when you
drink when you
I was
can.
just about to make a very inappropriate joke about the rise of evangelicals, but I can't do it. Like what happened?